When Dylan slid the tiny velvet box across the table, I thought he was proposing. Instead, he smiled and said, "I love you, Emma, but I want to see other people too." That was the moment I stopped being his girlfriend and quietly started becoming his biggest regret. Dylan and I had been together for 5 years, the kind of relationship that looked perfect on Instagram but felt like holding your breath in real life. We'd built everything together, or so I thought. I'd helped him through 3 job changes, paid off part of his debt, and stood by him when he said he just needed time to find his passion. Meanwhile, I was managing a full-time job and our bills, convincing myself love was about patience. That night at our anniversary dinner, I wore a silver dress he'd once said made me look like a storm in motion. We were at our favorite rooftop restaurant, fairy lights flickering above us, when he pulled out the box. My heart raced. I was ready for the next step. Marriage. Stability. Maybe a future that finally felt even. Then he opened his mouth. "Babe," he said, "I've been thinking a lot. I want us to grow, to experience new things." I smiled, confused but hopeful. "Like traveling." He laughed softly, shaking his head. "No, like people. I love you. I do. But I think I need an open relationship. I want to be honest with you." I blinked, not sure if I'd heard him right. "You're serious?" He nodded, totally calm, like he'd just suggested trying a new restaurant. "Yeah. I don't want to hide things. I just feel like there's so much out there I haven't experienced. And I don't want to die wondering." For a full minute, all I could hear was the faint clinking of dishes around us. I looked at the small box he'd pushed toward me. It wasn't a ring. It was a gold bracelet. Expensive, beautiful, meaningless. Inside me, something cracked, but my face didn't show it. I just smiled. "Okay," I said quietly. He blinked, surprised. "Okay. You want freedom?" I leaned back, my voice steady. "Then you'll have it." His face lit up, completely missing the shift in the air. "See? That's what I love about you. You get it." He reached across the table, squeezing my hand, already glancing at a woman passing by. I smiled back and took a slow sip of wine, letting the taste burn the back of my throat. He thought he'd won. That he'd found the perfect setup. Loyal girlfriend, endless options. But what he didn't know was that I'd been studying him for years. The lies, the patterns, the way he looked at himself in mirrors longer than he looked at me. So I decided to play along. If Dylan wanted an open relationship, I'd give him one. But I wouldn't be the one crying when the door finally opened. The next morning, he woke up early to go clear his head at the gym, which meant scrolling through dating apps in the parking lot. I made coffee, smiled, and told him I supported his journey. By the end of the week, his phone was glued to his hand. He started buying new cologne, spending hours on his hair, acting like a teenager who'd just discovered the internet. He'd show me photos of women on his screen, saying things like, "This one's into yoga, you should try that too." I nodded, pretending to care, while quietly watching him dig his own grave. When his mom texted me a week later about their family barbecue, I almost laughed. "Of course I'll be there," I wrote back. "Wouldn't miss it." That was when the plans started forming. Because Dylan's family adored me, especially his older brother, Alex. The one who never joined in when Dylan made jokes at my expense. The one who once helped me fix a flat tire when Dylan couldn't make it. The one who looked at me like I was a person, not a trophy. At the barbecue, Alex was at the grill, sunlight catching the edge of his smile. "Hey," he said when I walked up. "Heard about the open thing. You doing okay?" "Actually," I said, "I'm doing great." He raised an eyebrow. Yeah. Dylan wanted freedom. I'm just giving him exactly what he asked for." Alex laughed, but there was something serious behind it. "Careful. He's not used to losing control." "Oh," I said, picking up a soda can. "He's about to learn." Across the yard, Dylan was watching us. His grin faltered when he saw how close we stood. His conversation died mid-sentence. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt powerful. The kind of power that comes from finally realizing you don't have to be the quiet one. The first Real crack appeared 3 days after the barbecue. Dylan came home later than usual, his shirt smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. He dropped his keys on the counter and gave me that sheepish grin that used to melt me. Now, it only looked rehearsed. "Traffic was crazy," he said, tossing his phone on the couch. "Yeah?" I asked, stirring the pasta sauce I'd made, the one he used to beg for when we were still happy. "Did traffic smell like Chanel No. 5 tonight?" He froze, his hand halfway to the fridge. "What?" I turned slowly, spoon in hand, my expression calm. I said, "Did traffic smell like Chanel?" He forced a laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. "You're imagining things, Em. Don't get jealous. This is what we agreed on, right? No judging, no accusations." His words were smug, but I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes. He was testing the limits of his own rules, wondering if I'd crumble like before. I smiled and nodded. You're right. No judging. Just don't forget, open goes both ways. He chuckled, unsure, then went quiet. For the first time I watched him think, really think, about what that meant. That weekend, I started posting subtle photos. Nothing explicit, just enough. *T of my coffee cup across from a man's watch. A laugh caught mid-conversation in a mirror reflection where only my smile was visible. The kind of photo that leaves just enough space for curiosity to grow into paranoia. The likes came fast. So did the messages from Dylan. Who's that? Where are you? Are you seeing someone? I replied once, simple. You said we're open, remember? He didn't text back after that. But when he came home, his mood was off balance. Restless, irritable, like he was living with a ghost that knew all his secrets. The Raol warning bell came at his family's Sunday dinner. Everyone was gathered around the table. His parents, cousins, Alex beside me again. Dylan's mother was telling a story about her garden, and I laughed, leaning slightly toward Alex. It wasn't forced. It was easy. Natural. He smiled back, his hand brushing mine by accident. The air changed instantly. Dylan's fork clattered against his plate. Everything okay, babe? He said, his voice sharp around the edges. I looked at him, all innocence. Of course. Why wouldn't it be? He stared, jaw tightening. His mother glanced between us, her smile faltering. I excused myself to get more wine, but when I returned, I caught Dylan whispering something harsh to Alex. Alex's eyes flicked toward me, then he pushed back from the table. Maybe you should calm down, Alex said. Dylan scoffed. You think I don't see what's happening? What's happening, Alex said slowly, is that you made a mistake and now you're scared to admit it. The room went silent. Even his mother stopped mid-sentence. I stood in the doorway, pretending not to hear, but every word burned into my chest. Dylan muttered something under his breath and stormed off, the front door slamming behind him. Later that night, he didn't come home. I sat on the couch, sipping wine, watching the lights outside blur through the window. I should have felt angry. Instead, I felt steady, focused. He wanted open. He wanted freedom. But freedom looks different when the leash is in someone else's hand. When he finally came back the next morning, he looked different, haunted, tired. He mumbled something about crashing at a friend's place. I didn't ask which friend. Instead, I smiled and said, I'm glad you got some space. He looked at me for a long time, as if searching for the woman he used to control. But she was gone, replaced by someone who understood exactly how much power silence could hold. That was the moment the dynamic shifted. The hunter had just realized the prey could bite back. And for the first time, Dylan looked afraid of losing something he thought was his by default, me. But it was already too late. I had plans, and they didn't end with just making him jealous. They ended with making sure he'd never play another game like this again. By the time New Year's rolled around, Dylan had turned into a man possessed. He tried to pretend everything was fine, but every conversation, every sideways glance, carried a new kind of tension. He'd started keeping his phone locked, always face down, but he never seemed to stop checking it. If I so much as smiled at a notification, he'd stiffen. It was almost funny, how the man who begged for an open relationship couldn't stand the thought of me being desired. The shift in power was subtle at first. When I went out with coworkers, he'd text constantly, "Where are you? Who's there? Send a picture." At first, I played nice. Sent him one-word replies, blurry *TS of drinks or city lights. Then I started taking longer to respond. Hours, sometimes. He stopped sleeping. I could hear him pacing at night, the floorboards creaking in the dark. One evening, I woke to find him staring at me, his expression unreadable. "Are you seeing someone?" he whispered. I opened my eyes slowly. "Does it matter?" His jaw clenched. "Of course it matters. But we're open," I reminded him softly. "That's what you wanted, right?" He didn't reply. He just turned away, lying stiff beside me, the silence between us heavier than any argument. A few days later, I met Alex for coffee. I hadn't planned to, but he texted me first. "You okay?" "He's acting weird." When I arrived, Alex looked tired. "He came over last night," he said, stirring his drink. "Started asking questions about you. Like he thought I'd tell him something." "What did you say?" "I told him to get a grip." Alex hesitated, meeting my eyes. "Look, I don't know what you're planning, but he's unraveling. Be careful." I smiled faintly. I'm not doing anything he didn't start. That night, I posted another photo. Nothing scandalous, just my hand holding a mug beside a man's arm in a flannel sleeve. No caption. No tags. But the comment section lit up like fireworks. Within an hour, Dylan called. Who's in that picture? I feigned confusion. What picture? He hissed. Don't play dumb. You said we're open, I said again, calm as ever. Why are you so angry? Because you're trying to hurt me. I laughed quietly. Oh, Dylan, you made the rules. I'm just following them. He hung up. The next morning, he skipped work. His boss called, asking if everything was okay. I told them he needed rest. But the truth was, Dylan wasn't resting. He was spiraling. His friends stopped dropping by because he'd interrogate them about who I was seeing. His mother texted me privately saying, I don't know what's happening between you two, but please don't let it destroy him. That text almost made me feel sorry for him. Almost. He had destroyed me first. Slowly, quietly, over years of manipulation disguised as love. Every time he joked about me being clingy, every time he'd made me feel lucky he stayed, it all added up. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about balance. Then came the night he tried to corner me. I'd come home late from a friend's art show, still in my coat, when he blocked the doorway. His eyes were *T, his voice low. Tell me the truth, he said. Are you seeing Alex? The air went still. I set my bag down. Does that scare you? He stepped closer. Answer me. I met his stare. You wanted open. Maybe I'm just opening up. He slammed his hand against the wall beside my head, breathing hard. You think this is funny? No, I said softly. I think it's poetic. He froze. For a second, I saw the realization dawn in his eyes, that I wasn't bluffing. That maybe his brother, the one he always tried to outshine, had seen something in me he never could. He stepped back, shaking his head. You're insane. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I just stopped playing by your rules. He left that night, slamming the door so hard it rattled the frames on the walls. I sat on the couch, the silence buzzing around me, and for the first time, I didn't feel small or afraid. Dylan was unraveling, piece by piece. And all I had to do was let him. Because soon, the truth would break through the cracks he'd made himself. The night everything broke open, the air outside felt like glass, cold, sharp, waiting to shatter. Dylan had been gone for almost 2 days, not answering texts, not showing up to work, and I'd beg *N to think maybe he'd finally burned himself out. But then, at 1:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. Dylan, we need to talk. The message sat on the screen, glowing like a threat. I stared at it for a moment, then typed back, about what? His reply came instantly. You know what? I'm coming over. When he showed up, he looked worse than I'd ever seen him. Hair a mess, eyes hollow, like he hadn't slept. He stood in the doorway, shoulders trembling, not from cold but from rage barely contained. Where is he? He demanded. Who? Don't play with me, Emma. Alex. Where is he? I blinked, stunned. Why would Alex be here? He let out a bitter laugh, pulling out his phone. Because I saw the messages. The pictures. You two think you're so clever. My heart lurched. What are you talking about? He shoved the screen toward me. It was a series of *TS, texts between me and Alex. My words, his replies. But they weren't real. Sentences had been stitched together, timestamps altered. In them, I looked like I was confessing everything. I'm falling for you. He deserves it. He'll never find out. You faked these, I said, voice low. Don't lie to me. Dylan shouted. His face twisted, years of insecurity surfacing all at once. I knew it. The way you looked at him. You wanted this. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at him. The man who had begged for freedom, who had spent months chasing new distractions, was now furious because I dared to live on my own terms. Dylan, I said quietly, you created this. You opened the door. You just didn't like what walked through it. He stared, breathing hard. You're saying you did it? I met his eyes. I'm saying I stopped pretending I couldn't. Something flickered in his gaze, hurt, confusion, and underneath it, something darker. He turned away, pacing, muttering to himself. I gave you everything, he said. And you, everything. I cut him off. You gave me conditions. Rules that only worked when I followed them. You wanted control, Dylan. That's all this ever was. He stopped pacing. So you admit it. I sighed. I admit that you're not the only one who can play a game. He went silent. The clock ticked on the wall, steady and cruel. And then he said something that made my skin crawl. I talked to your landlord, he said softly. You didn't renew the lease, did you? Maybe you shouldn't get too comfortable here. My stomach dropped. What did you do? He smiled, a slow, broken smile. You're not the only one who can make moves. I realized then how deep his obsession had gone. He hadn't just been watching me. He'd been planning. The open relationship had turned him into something feral, paranoid, desperate to keep a version of me that no longer existed. That's when my phone buzzed again. A new message. From Alex. Is he with you? He's been calling non-stop. He showed up at my apartment earlier. I looked up at Dylan. You went to his place? He didn't answer.
Dylan, I said slowly, what did you do?
I wanted to hear him say it, he muttered.
Wanted him to admit it.
The truth clicked into place with a sickening thud. Dylan hadn't just seen fake messages. He'd made them. He'd forged them himself, then convinced himself they were real. I stepped back, my voice shaking now.
You made those *TS.
He didn't deny it. He just stared at me, eyes wide, jaw tight, breathing ragged. I just needed proof, he whispered. I needed to know I wasn't crazy.
You are, I said quietly, and I think you finally know it.
He laughed. Short. Hollow. Then his shoulders sagged, the fury leaking out of him all at once. I loved you, he said.
You ruined me.
I felt something sharp rise in my throat. Not pity, not fear, but the strange clarity that comes when you finally see someone for who they are. No, I said. You ruined yourself. I just stopped helping. He left not long after, slamming the door so hard it shook the frame. I didn't move for a long time, just stood there in the silence, the echo of his rage still hanging in the air. The revelation wasn't about his jealousy, it was about the truth underneath it. Dylan hadn't wanted love or freedom. He'd wanted ownership. And when he couldn't own me, he'd rather destroy me than face the reflection of his own failure. I locked the door, sat on the couch, and let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped for years. For the first time, I wasn't scared of him. I was done being scared of anyone. But I also knew, Dylan wasn't finished yet. Not by a long *T. For 2 days after Dylan's late-night breakdown, the silence was almost worse than the chaos. I kept expecting a knock on the door, a message, a phone call. Nothing came. The quiet felt loaded, like the calm before a storm I couldn't yet see. I spent those days planning. Not revenge, not exactly, but closure on my terms. I didn't want to hurt him anymore. I just wanted to make sure he couldn't hurt me again. It started with the lease. Dylan had bragged about calling my landlord, so I went to the office myself. When I explained what was happening, the woman behind the desk frowned. He called, yes, she said. Pretended to be your fiancé. Wanted to transfer the lease under his name. We didn't approve it. I felt the blood drain from my face. So he tried to take my apartment. She nodded. We'll flag his number.
If he shows up again, we'll call the police.
I walked out with shaking hands but a strange sense of relief. He was slipping, and this time, people were seeing it. The next step was Alex. I hadn't answered his texts since that night. When I finally met him at a small diner outside the city, he looked like he hadn't slept either.
I'm sorry, he said as soon as I sat down.
He's out of control. I didn't want to believe he could forge messages, follow me, but he rubbed his forehead. He needs help, Emma.
This isn't normal anymore.
I know, I said quietly. That's why I'm ending it. For good. He looked up. How? I took a deep breath. By showing everyone who he's become. No more pretending he's just stressed or misunderstood. I'm done covering for him. Alex hesitated. That could destroy him. I stirred my coffee, watching the swirl of cream spread like smoke.
He already destroyed everything else.
That night, I gathered everything. The fake *TS, the text messages, the recordings of his outbursts. I compiled them neatly, methodically, the way you'd build a case file. I wasn't going to humiliate him publicly, but I was going to make sure his mask slipped where it mattered most. His job, his family, his friends. I drafted an email to his HR department, attaching evidence of harassment and impersonation. I wrote another to his parents, calm and factual, with proof that their son had tried to take over my lease. I didn't embellish. I didn't rant. I let the facts speak. Before I hit send, I hesitated. There was a part of me that still remembered the good, the small moments before everything rotted. The boy who used to kiss my forehead when I was half asleep. The one who once promised we'd build something real. But then I remembered the bracelet, the fake messages, the fear in my chest every time he raised his voice. I pressed send. The next morning, the world shifted. His HR manager called me first. They were deeply concerned. He'd been suspended pending review. His mother emailed next. Shock, apology, disbelief. His father, ever the stoic, simply wrote, "Thank you for telling us. We'll handle it." Alex texted me a single line. "It's done." I thought that would be the end of it. But of course, Dylan couldn't go quietly. That evening, as the sun set, I found a note taped to my door. His handwriting, jagged, uneven. You think you won, but you don't know what winning costs. I stood there for a long time, the paper trembling between my fingers. For a moment, I felt the old fear creep back in, the kind that used to keep me frozen, small. Then I took the note, tore it in half, and dropped it in the trash. I wasn't his victim anymore. Later that night, I got a call from Alex again. He showed up at my place, he said, voice tense. He wanted to talk. I called the cops. They took him in for a wellness check. For the first time, I exhaled fully. The storm had finally broken. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Dylan's mother. He's in treatment. He's not allowed to contact you anymore. I'm sorry for everything. I sat on the couch, sunlight streaming through the curtains, and let the words wash over me. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was release. The kind of quiet that follows when you finally stopped running from someone else's chaos. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, turned on some music, and wrote one final message to myself in my journal. You didn't destroy him. You survived him. It wasn't revenge. It was recovery. But as I closed the journal, I couldn't help but smile, because deep down, I knew he'd never forget what happened when he tried to open a door he couldn't handle walking through. The message about Dylan being in treatment should have been the end, but closure is rarely clean. For days, I felt that fragile calm, the kind that makes you wonder if it's real or just the eye of another storm. I worked, slept, ate, but every time my phone buzzed, my pulse spiked. Then, on a cold Friday evening, my doorbell rang. At first, I thought it was a delivery. When I checked the peephole, my stomach turned to ice. Dylan stood there. His hair was shorter, his face gaunt, but his eyes, those frantic, shifting eyes, were the same. Emma, open up, he said, voice too calm. Please. I just want to talk. Every instinct told me not to. I should have called the police right then, but curiosity, or maybe habit, made me pause. I opened the door halfway, leaving the chain latched. You're not supposed to be here, I said quietly. I know, he replied, his voice trembling. But I needed to see you. Just once. To explain. Explain. I laughed. Bitter. After everything? He nodded, gripping the doorframe like it was the only thing keeping him upright. They took everything from me, Emma. My job, my friends, my family. You ruined me. I shook my head. No. Dylan. You did that yourself. He flinched, like the truth was something physical. Then his voice softened. I'm getting better. The doctors say I just need to take responsibility. That's what I'm doing. I just need you to forgive me. His tone almost fooled me, until I noticed his hand twitching behind his back. I stepped back. What's that? He blinked, then slowly pulled out an envelope. Letters, he said. All the things I never said. I hesitated, the old version of myself flickering for just a moment, the one who always wanted to fix things. But I forced it down. Leave them there, I said. He slid the envelope onto the floor, but he didn't move. You know, I kept thinking about what you said. That I opened a door I couldn't handle. You were right. I opened it. And then you locked me out. I kept my hand on the chain. You were never locked out, Dylan. You walked out. Something snapped in him then, subtle but real. The tremble in his voice turned sharp. You think you won? You think you get to rewrite everything? I don't need to rewrite it, I said quietly. I just stopped living your version. He stared at me for a long time. Then he smiled, a strange, small, defeated smile. I guess I really did lose, huh? I didn't answer. When he finally turned to leave, I waited until his footsteps faded before unlatching the chain and picking up the envelope. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside were pages covered in his handwriting, apologies mixed with rage, confessions mixed with blame. It wasn't closure. It was proof of how deeply broken he'd become. I put the letters back in the envelope and dropped them in the trash without reading another word. That night, Alex called again. They found him near the river, he said. He wasn't supposed to leave the facility. He's going back in, longer term this time. I didn't know what to feel. Relief, sorrow, exhaustion. Maybe all of it. Weeks passed. Winter melted into spring. Dylan disappeared into silence again, this time for good. No texts, no calls, no late-night visits. One morning, I found a postcard in my mailbox. No return address. Just 4 words scrawled across the back. Thank you for ending it. I turned it over. It was a photo of a coastline, waves crashing against cliffs. I didn't know if it was a real apology or just another manipulation, but either way, it didn't matter. That evening, I met Alex for coffee again. He smiled when he saw me, the kind of smile that doesn't demand anything. You look lighter, he said. I feel it, I admitted. He hesitated. Do you ever regret it? How it all happened? I thought for a long moment before answering. No. Because sometimes you have to walk through hell just to prove you can leave it. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain. I looked out the window, the world soft and gray and new. Dylan's chapter was over. Mine was just beginning. The message from Dylan's mother was the last piece of the storm falling away. I sat there for a long time, reading it over and over until the words blurred into sunlight. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even relieved. I was just still, as if my body hadn't realized it could finally stop bracing for the next disaster. In the weeks that followed, life rearranged itself. The apartment became mine in a way it had never been before. I moved his last box of things to the curb, changed the locks, and opened the windows to let in the cold spring air. It smelled clean, sharp, like a blank page. I started going out again. Small things at first. Morning runs, coffee alone at the cafe on the corner, dinners with friends who said I looked different, lighter. Alex came by once, returning a sweater I'd left in his car months before. He looked tired but peaceful. "How are you holding up?" he asked. I smiled. "Better. I think I'm finally done with it all." He nodded, and for a moment we sat in silence, the kind that doesn't feel heavy anymore. There was no promise between us, no tension. Just understanding. When he left, I sat on the balcony, the city humming below, and realized I'd built something stronger out of the ruins Dylan left behind. I didn't post much online anymore. The photos, the careful curation, it had all been part of a story that wasn't mine to live. Now, my life was quiet, grounded. I worked, I painted, I breathed. Sometimes I still thought about Dylan, not with love or anger, but with a strange kind of detachment, the way you think about an old scar. He had wanted to control the narrative, to make me small, to make me question my worth. But in the end, the only thing his chaos had given me was clarity. I wasn't broken. I was rebuilt. Months later, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer, but a voicemail came through. It was short, just a man's voice saying, "Thank you. I'm sorry." Then the line went dead. I deleted it without replaying it. Some things didn't need closure. They needed distance. That night, I wrote again in my journal, the same one I'd used during the worst of it. The pages were filled with fear, plans, and fragments of the girl who'd once thought love meant staying no matter how much it hurt. I flipped to a blank page and wrote, "Love isn't a cage. It's a door that swings both ways." I didn't write his name anywhere on that page. He didn't deserve to live there anymore. Weeks later, Alex texted me a photo of the beach. No caption, just a horizon full of light. For once, I didn't overthink it. I smiled, put down the phone, and walked outside into the morning sun. Because the truth was simple. Dylan had wanted an open relationship to feed his ego, but what he opened instead was the part of me that had forgotten its own strength. And once that part was awake, there was no going back.